Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm Dominic with PowerSlap News here in Vegas. Sorry if it's a little bit windy. We're doing our best to find a little spot that's quiet. Joining me is John the Machine Davis, who's going to be fighting later today live on Rumble for the first ever PowerSlap event. How's it going, John? Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Yes, thank you guys for coming out. We appreciate it.
So you were just talking, we just mentioned really quickly about the house, and you were saying it was like a boot camp. You want to give us a little bit more on that? Like it was, because we got bits and pieces, but you were there all day.
People were psychologically, it broke a lot of people or caused a lot of issues because, I mean, we were all just cut off from our families and anyone back home to the outside world. So, you know, you're stuck with this rule set of things you can and can't do. It was definitely, yeah, people started to break. I mean, we all broke at a certain point, but it drove a couple others a little bit mad.
Well, we did see you on the show, and you were one of the more, I want to say, emotional people that we saw on there. And it doesn't seem like you're kind of shying away from that. Like you're really open about that, and you really were forward. Was that part of the house stress, or is that just you as a person in general?
That's me as a person anymore in general. You know, I've had to do a lot of growth over time. I wasn't always, you know, the happiest. I've spent a lot of life being angry about things didn't quite understand. So I'm trying to be better every day, not just for myself, but obviously my wife and kids. And, you know, now being competing at the top of this, to be a role model for people to get into this. And also, you know, I've had people already tell me I've inspired them to get back into doing stuff. And that's just more motivation to be better in any aspect that I can.
Well, that's super awesome, man. And I think it's pretty interesting that when we look at the house, you generally seem to be, the house is kind of split between the bad boys and the good guys, right? We have like the John, the Jessies, right? The who fight for the nicest guy in the house kind of thing. So now it's interesting to me that you're fighting Azael, right? I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Azael, yeah. Sorry, I apologize. Azael. Azael has the reputation as the resident bad boy. Going into this, do you have any kind of like ready to humble this guy, or was there any animosity between you two, being the nice guy versus the bad guy kind of thing?
Like I said in an interview the other day, you know, nothing from the house carries over to this. We were all put in a real controlled environment that we really didn't have much choice. We were, you know, a bunch of testosterone filled crazy guys already anyway, stuck in a house together. So I don't hold anything against him. You know, I do, you know, he's at least said now that he's tried to quit the drinking. So if that's the issue, then so be it. Because that's why I don't drink anymore myself. I lived a rowdy lifestyle many moons ago, but not any longer.
And that must have been tough, because talking to the fighters, it really seems like the booze was a-flowing at the house. Like that Howler Head was not just product placement. Those were full real bottles ready to go.
As one of the people who didn't drink in the house, when they say that stuff just showed up, I mean, I would turn around and not understand how it got there. So I don't know if they had SWAT dropping in from the ceiling with these bottles or what, but for a hot minute, dude, it was just on deck, and they probably wiped out a few pallets amongst everybody else, is all I can assume. But I was drinking water, Slate, and Monster. I had nothing to do with that.
Crazy. So I want to talk to you a little bit more about the sport. The debate that I tend to have with a lot of fighters, or the fighters tend to have in general, is height versus weight. Where do you come into that? What is more important for a slap fighter? Is it the height or is it the weight?
Honestly, I don't think either. I think it's more about your mentality and if you actually know what you're getting into or not. Okay. I competed at heavyweight when we first got down here last March, and now I'm down at middleweight. So the only thing that's changed is the size of my opponents and then my, you know, obviously physical stature. But every opponent's going to be different. You could be 300 pounds and 5'3" and jacked, but you could also be 6'6", 320. You know, it's going to play a factor in a whole bunch of different ways, pending in every match. It's going to be real particular.
So where do you come in then on the slapping up versus slapping down? Because the fighters that I've spoke to say now that your people are putting the knees into it, that explosion on the come up. I just spoke to Vern, who compared it to Mike Tyson, who was always a bit of a shorter fighter and came up with the crazy uppercuts, right? Do you think there's something to that, or no, it's all mental, it's all kind of your training, your preparation, getting ready for the fight?
And also because I think you could call on Jules Scott for that, because he also talks about taking a lot of his technique from Mike Tyson's style. So yeah, and I think that's just more so what fits them. You know, everybody's different. I think it's more so, again, how you're built in your stature and how you started training for this, because everybody brought their own different techniques into this from, you know, whatever background they had. Some were power lifters, some were fighters, some were, you know, off the couch. So everything at this point is just still at a very, very beginning of a learning curve, I think, that's going to skyrocket. And once it does plateau, us at the beginning of this are really going to have a good advantage to carry on careers outside of this with everything.
Well, that's another question I wanted to ask you. Participating in the first ever PowerSlap 1, right? This is it, #1. There's never going to be another #1. If this ends up becoming something like a UFC, do you feel more of a pressure knowing that, hey, this can be something big versus somebody who participated in UFC 1, didn't know what they were taking a part of? Do you feel like, oh boy, we're on the cusp of something huge?
I absolutely believe that, you know, but I also think that there's at least a good handful of us that have the shoulders broad enough to carry the weight to push this to where they want it, and, you know, hopefully even further to exceed their expectations is all I can hope for.
Well, I think you're taking it very seriously. I've seen there's other people like AJ who says he doesn't train at all. He comes in, does this thing, leaves, and then he's back at the concerts.
He goes to the concerts and keeps headbanging, you know?
I guess that's the training in itself, right?
Absolutely.
For this sport specifically.
I used to headbang back in the day, so that's, you know, I'm not going to lie, that might play a very good part in it also.
Okay, well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know this is fight day. You got a lot to do. Thank you so much for talking with us. If there's anything you want to say to the people, any sponsors or anything you want to plug, website, merch, by all means, let the people know what you got going on.
Obviously, shout out to my wife and kids back home. I miss you guys very much, and I'll be home soon. Shout out Next Level in Alliance, Ohio, martial arts. The Bean family is where I train, and all of them are great people. The place is awesome and definitely helped change my life. And shout out to everyone who's been back home supporting me. You guys are the best. I appreciate that. And shout out to the haters, because you guys keep making those views go up and up and up, baby. Not my fault. You keep looking. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.